Hey everybody, welcome back to the show. Welcome to the pre-show show, the show cocktail hour. I'm Jay, that's Aaron.
Heyo.
And that's Tony.
Hello, hello.
Hello, lovelies.
For anybody new to the program, this is kind of like our off-topic section, typically. Today I have a beautiful martini made with a beautiful Japanese gin. I felt that was appropriate with our Japanese subject matter today. I've got a martini made with Lillet Blanc and some Nika coffee gin. Very much looking forward to that.
Seems very, very classy. I have recently started making my own soda at home because soda pop is quite expensive these days. And I got a soda stream from Walmart pretty cheap. Ooh. And they make Mountain Dew Zero syrup for the soda stream. So I am living that gamer life and making my own Mountain Dew.
You're doing the dew.
Like, it's some fresh dew, though, you know? Like morning dew, morning Mountain Dew. It's the best part of waking up.
I am a fellow soda streamer, and I love it.
Mm-hmm.
So tell me, when you put the bottle in, how many pumps
presses?
Do you get it? Yeah.
I started at 5. I feel like I'm eking up to 7.
Oh! So. Oh, wow. Man, that's just going to eat right through your teeth.
I mean, I use a straw to solve the problem.
Hey, there you go.
Bypass the teeth.
Just bypass the teeth. No, I don't know if, like, Christy was like, I like the soda to have bite. She was like, it's got to, like, bite back. And I was like, I don't know about that. Like, I like it strong, but I don't want to hurt myself.
Drink some hot Diet Coke.
Oh, that bites in a lot of different ways.
No, I definitely love it nice and fizzy. And my mom is also a committed soda streamer. But I usually give it about 3 pumps before it starts to give you that like kicking sound. But my mom will sit there and just like hold it down.
So I guess I press the button like 1 stop, 2 stop, 3 stop. I don't hold it for like 7 Mississippi or anything.
Yeah. Is it more of like a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, or just like a?
No, it's just like a 1, 2, and like I'm releasing between numbers. So like 1, 2, 3, 4. Like I just see it like do the spray down into the bottle and then I let go. Like I don't know if that's the right way, but that's just how I've been doing it. I apologize for the doorbell and the dog barking in the background. I don't know why anybody's...
Can't even hear it.
Oh yeah? Well, that's good. I was going to say.
That noise suppression working.
I thought none of us picked noise suppression.
There's like Discord noise suppression. I feel like my audio app has noise suppression. I probably have like way too many levels of noise suppression on in this thing.
It's what is that? You're not actually whispering, you're shouting?
I've got a megaphone up to my microphone.
Do you have one of those leftover cones from like when your dog has surgery and you just like...
Are they like ask if I was a cheerleader or something in high school and had one of those megaphones? Do they still use those? Is that a thing? Those big
Did they ever?
cones?
I don't remember seeing them when I went to school. Like,
I
at
remember
all.
them from my youth. I don't know if I remember them from my high school, but I remember like when I was a small kid, I remember them being a thing like that cheerleaders used.
They definitely had them at Tech. Like it's mostly decorative at this point, I think.
They give the dude something to hold. I don't know. Do the guy cheerleaders use pom poms? I don't watch sports where there are cheerleaders. I don't watch sports in general, but
That's a good question. They probably do.
that's what I'm saying. I thought that's what the guys held up as like the giant megaphone.
These are all great questions. I don't even know if they have the giant pom-poms anymore. I feel like they're all small pom-poms now, if they even have pom-poms.
They're just palms. They cut them
Just
in half.
one pom. It's just a pop.
It kind of depends place to place. At my great institution of an alma mater, Texas Tech, you've got the cheerleaders and then you've got the dance team. And like, I don't know. One of them has big pom-poms, one of them has small pom-poms. There must have been a better way to phrase that.
Yeah, it's the clothing. It accentuates the palms.
Have you, let me ask this. I'm going back to the soda stream for a second. Have you made any of your own like soda syrup, or are you just like buying syrup and or making your own like soda water? I guess you're just like adding fruit juice to it.
Oh, I've never done like custom syrup. I've gotten some of the Pepsi Zero Sugar before and enjoyed that. But man, I feel a little silly now. It hadn't even occurred to me to do my own, but I make syrups for bartending and drink making all the time. So why not?
That's what I was wondering. I'm thinking about looking up some like soda syrup recipes and trying to make my own. I'm definitely on this whole kick of making a lot of our own food and things like that. After we moved, so we don't have anything around us. Like there's no fast food, so we've gone from like living in the middle of like food city, restaurants and fast food everywhere, to like Bubba's down the street is 15 minutes away and it's only open like until 8:00.
Yeah, I feel that very much, because the same thing happened to me when my first baby was born. Because I moved down outside of Austin for a while, and where we moved with my in-laws was way out there, like by the Salt Lick, if you know where that is. Mm-hmm. And just like you're saying, anything you want to get to, you got to drive on a rural road for 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And like just whiplash from living in Addison to having to plan to that degree was the tough transition.
Yeah, that's kind of like it feels good. Like I'm enjoying it in that we're cooking more, we're planning more, we're way more efficient. Like I feel like we threw away a lot of leftovers and a lot of meals when we were living in the apartment. And now it feels like we're like, well, we'll just eat this again 2 more days. But we're like planning to get a deep freezer because we're like, might as well like make enough to like freeze some each time, and then that way you got like your own frozen meals for later.
Yeah, and you can like make it a challenge for yourself to like try new recipes, cook things you never thought you could before, because it's amazing what seems so intricate when you're on the other side of the table from it, but when you make it yourself, you go, that wasn't so hard.
I know, sashimi is just raw fish. You just eat it.
You just throw it on a plate. If dishes would not be created that would have to be washed, I would really go hard on the cooking front. Part. But I despise it, so I'm like, I try to keep it to one dish. Like cook all the cooking, it happens in one dish, and then I could throw that dish in the fridge with like a cover on it or something. Just like really minimize the washing.
No, it's definitely the struggle is dishes, because it just feels like there's always dishes. It doesn't matter. Like there's always dishes to be done.
Well, let's take a quick programming break and then we'll start the show proper.
Ba-dum-ba.
Previously on the show.
Zeke's like up in my business, so if there's a bump, it's him hitting the desk.
Why does my mind always leave me when we get these microphones turned on?
Pigeons.
The shits on the chest.
I am absolutely fucking speechless. Like I have found the Kids Bop Montero Call My Name. Behind the scenes Kids Bop 2022 making of video. Like, what on fucking earth? My brain is absolutely blown by this fact. And I know that this is not, we're talking about the leftovers, but oh my god, what has happened to the world? That doesn't need a Kids Bop version.
I watched that one on a plane, and I forgot all the nudity. It's like Game of Thrones or something. I was like, oh, let me just skip forward 10 seconds at a time.
Jay, Tony, what would your first Sona be?
Oh, shit. I just realized something about myself.
Yeah, I was not cool enough to be invited to that party.
So I'm going to give it the full 9 inches.
Hello, and you're watching The Show, probably the world's best TV review podcast. Warmest greetings and welcome to episode 70. Here today, we review the 2024 FX limited historical drama series based on the novel by James Clavell. What do you prefer, stories, legends, or the truth? This time on the show, Shogun. I'd like to welcome you inside the broadcast booth. I'm Jay. I'm joined, as always, by my two Hall of Famers. To my left, a skilled pilot and adventurer, gold medalist in the 10-meter springboard at the 1964 Tokyo Games. It's Aaron-sama.
Arg! I'm a pirate, or am I?
And to my other left, a man who has no patience for vegetable tempura, it's Tony-sama.
Konnichiwa.
Here at the show, 100% customer satisfaction is our holy grail. We want to hear from you. Check out our Instagram for news about the show, including our upcoming tour, convention, and cruise, along with plenty of other bonus content. You can find us at the show pod. You can find us on email, or better way to say that is you can send your emails to the showtvpodcast@gmail.com. We do have a show Discord. As soon as I figure that out, I will let you know how to use that. You can find me individually at jsuesponte. Aaron, where can we find you?
I believe I still have an account on X at this point, but I'm not sure when they, cycle you out kind of like they do the voting registration. So, but at Tenacious Aaron on X would be my handle.
How about you, Tony?
You can find me on Instagram at tpinquite.
The show is now available everywhere podcasts are sold. You can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, YouTube Music, Amazon Music, Audible, CastBox, Overcast, Pocket Casts, and Radio Public. You can check out our YouTube channel where we do a bonus pre-show cocktail hour. That is Mandamus Radio. But before we dip into this beautiful omakase, we must first visit the unofficial scoreboard / Naruto update. This is the part of the show where we share our thoughts on other diversions not selected by the great Wheel of Randomonium. So, Aaron, what you been watching?
So, in the middle of everything, of watching Shogun, we've been moving, and so trying to find something to watch and kind of break up the monotony of that has been interesting. But one of the things that was kind of interesting about our house when we were picking it out was that someone had put graffiti on the back of a very crudely drawn Vegeta from Dragon Ball Z. And I had just recently watched through Dragon Ball Super. And whenever we were looking at the house, Chrissy says, well, if we get this house, we're obviously going to have to watch Dragon Ball, so I know the significance of who this Vegeta character is. So we started watching Dragon Ball, and we're like, I don't know, 40 episodes in, 35, something like that. And it's fun. It's real light for the most part. An odd amount of 1980s inappropriate, humor. For being a kid's show, and a lot of nudity, which is really surprising.
I remember the little Goku penises.
Yeah, male nudity. Goku just doesn't understand norms, and so it doesn't matter if he's naked because he doesn't understand why he shouldn't be naked.
Isn't Master Roshi kind of pervy?
Oh, super pervy. There's definitely he was like, go get me a girl and I'll train you, and Goku goes and gets a mermaid, and he's like, next time get one with the human part on the bottom.
Jeez.
So he wanted fish top?
He didn't specify that. He just was like, he's like, that's not what I'm looking for. But yeah, they're Krillin shows up, and I love Kid Krillin. He's great. But he shows up and gives, Master Roshi a bunch of dirty mags to train him to be a martial arts specialist. So,
but Vegeta's not till Dragon Ball Z though, right?
I know, but you gotta go. I mean, I didn't. I don't think anybody did back whenever Dragon Ball Z was aired. But she was like, I want to watch it from the beginning because we watched through Naruto, and we're at the end of Shippuden, and so she kind of fell in love with Naruto and has enjoyed Shippuden because of that journey. And so I was like, well, it's similar in that it's starting when Goku's a kid. And she's really enjoyed it. She's enjoyed watching it. I've really enjoyed it. It's been just kind of lighthearted and easy. While at the same time, kind of a toss back to the show, I've been reading One Punch Man, and really enjoying that.
There's a third season coming out. Hopefully it's better than the second.
Well, we watched the first season for the show, and I decided, instead of watching, I decided to read it. And that has, I don't know, it's just been very fun because it's not a very hard read. I'm waiting for more Dragon Ball Super to come out because I know that after Akira Toriyama died, they said that, as a Toyotaro, he's supposed to take over and continue the story. So I'm kind of curious to see what they do with that. But I hear there's now a rights dispute to Dragon Ball IP. Apparently there's two different, I guess, publishing companies or two different companies who are claiming that they have the rights to Dragon Ball's IP.
Allegedly.
Nice.
Well, how about you, Tony? What you been up to?
I was trying to think. Man, I'm going to just give Apple more money, I guess. I got cheated. I don't have Apple TV, and then I watched like the first 1 or 2 episodes of like that Presumed Innocent. I think that's the name of the show. It's like a legal drama mystery show on Apple TV. I was like, I watched the first 2 episodes. I'm like, okay, surely this is already out. I just got to pay for like a month of, but no, it's coming out weekly, and so I think I'm 6 of 8 episodes in, and I've really enjoyed it quite a lot. But I don't know if I want to like give them, $10 for a month is not that bad. I really wish I would have waited till it was already done streaming if I had known. I don't know if I want to give them $20 by paying another 10 to finish it, but I probably will because it is quite good. I'm sure. I don't know. Can y'all even enjoy like movies and shows that are based around like legal courtroom settings? Because they're probably not realistic at all, I imagine. Or
it depends.
Does it?
It just depends. Whenever it's not trying to be real, when it's a joke and they know it's a joke, it's a lot easier for me to take because I don't have to take it serious. It's when they're like uber serious and they just miss it. Like it just is redonkulous. That's where I'm like, ugh.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, it's good. It's not, it's centered around this trial that's going to happen. And I guess it did start happening towards the end of the last episode, but it's mostly like kind of like a murder mystery, like scandal type story.
Is it a real, like, is it this one of those, like,
I think
making
it's
a
fictional.
murderer
I think
thing,
maybe
or?
It's based on a book or something. It's about it's got Jake Gyllenhaal in it. He's pretty much the biggest name. It's got David Burton in it. From Left.
It's got Peter Sarsgaard.
What does it?
I just looked up Presumed Innocent, and his was the second name.
I'm trying to think of who that is. Oh yeah, that's the creepy dude. Like he usually plays a creepy dude in movies and stuff. But yeah, it's like find out the main character. This is pretty much the premise, so I don't think it's a spoiler. But he was having an affair with a fellow lawyer. He's a lawyer. He's having an affair with a lawyer, and she ends up like murdered. And obviously, he's like the main suspect. And then it's kind of like us going along. Like, is he innocent or not? We kind of, we probably want to believe him, but he keeps like leaving stuff out. So it's been really good.
It's like Gone Girl type thing, or what's that? The one where Edward Norton was the bad guy all along?
Fight Club?
Fight Club?
No, not that one. No, there's some other one with Dustin Hoffman where like Dustin Hoffman's the lawyer and he's defending Edward Norton.
Oh, yeah. It's Richard Gere, isn't it?
Gere, yeah, something like that. I know I've seen that last scene where it's like Edward Norton's evil all along, like referenced a lot, but I've never watched the movie.
Yeah, I forget what that movie's called. I don't know. I guess it could end up like that. I didn't get that. It's probably gonna be
Primal Fear.
Episodes. Yeah, Primal Fear. So where he like acts like he has like a split personality or something, and he gets off on like a crazy defense.
Yeah.
It hasn't hinted at that yet.
I'm always looking for the twist.
It's just kind of like, oh, I was having an affair, and then they find her dead, and it's like, oh, and then like he doesn't admit to like having an affair, so he's like the lead lawyer, and that leads to problems with them like being accused of obstructing the case because he was also like with her that night. That eventually comes out he was with her that night, and all that stuff, all this other stuff.
Why are you running? Why are you running?
I don't know. It's good. I'll probably donate money to finish it because I have quite enjoyed it.
You're not donating. You're paying for it. They're providing you service of data.
Yeah, I guess I got to watch some Ted Lasso or something if I'm going to pay for it.
You might as well. When does Severance Season 2 come out? Isn't that on Apple?
Ooh. It is on
Apple.
Apple. It's supposed to be this year sometime, I think.
That's what I was saying. Maybe you want to wait for that to come out too, so you can watch that. Kind of double your money.
January 2025.
Well, that's a bit away.
That's a long time. What about you, Jay? Jay-san. Jay-sama.
Oh, Tony-sama. Well, Hot D's back.
I want to go with Daddy and have some Hot D.
Oh, really?
And I think watching Shogun at the same time as Hot D may have been a little bit of a mistake because they're very similar in themes. So they're both about infighting within a realm, and Hot D, I think it has a lot more of an emphasis on the fact that when the nobles fight, it's the common people who suffer. And I don't know if you guys have been watching what's been going on in the world in the last week, but feels like a message that we all need to take to heart.
So I've been trying to decipher what Hot D was.
It took me a long time.
Dragons.
Yeah, House of the Dragon. It took me I was just about to say the same thing here, and I was like, wait, what is Hot D?
I literally Googled Hot D because I was like, am I like just missing something, or am I like not understanding what he's saying? And House of Dragons first came up. So you now I need to go back. You said that it was wealthy people fighting is causing suffering for all people. Is that what you were saying?
Yeah, when the nobles fight and cause a civil war, it's the common people who suffer.
I mean, you're not wrong. I don't know that I would call anybody an American noble these days.
Yeah, it's more about
Here's
class.
Yeah, there you go.
A very rude question that I understand is rude and maybe a little chauvinistic, but are there any characters as hot as Emilia Clarke or Natalie Dormer in this House of Dragons show?
It's much less about the sexiness in this one. I've heard some people say that House of the Dragon is like Game of Thrones with training wheels, because it's not as intricate or complex or confusing. So maybe that's why I like it so much more than I liked Game of Thrones. But we're halfway through the second season. I'm really enjoying that. Oh, I feel like I need to revisit something from past episodes because I came here on our beautiful platform and I dragged a show from my childhood called Boy Meets Worlds.
Uh-huh.
And I made those comments after only watching about a season and a half. And I've since finished the rest of the show. And I want to walk back some of my criticisms. I think it's...
Okay.
It wasn't the turd that I thought it was after watching season one. It did eventually hit its stride. Especially once they brought in Mr. Turner, the cool teacher.
Sean's mentor type.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly.
Feeney! I like Feeney.
I think what was most jarring was that this show aired from, I think it was like 1992 to 1999. And by the time you got to the end, they're making South Park references. Like it's not even oblique. Like they are quoting Cartman and speaking his name. And here we are 25 years later, and South Park is still chugging along as strong as ever.
That's true.
It's wild.
I don't know about strong as ever, but definitely still a cultural piece of, criticism.
Yeah. I hate to speak this into existence, but it's almost like South Park is our Mark Twain. Of like, what is the most influential satirical political commentary in America right now? And I think for a long time it's been South Park, and I don't like admitting that, but I think it's true.
I think that they're one of the few people that I can say with full confidence makes fun of everyone. That they don't necessarily let their own, and maybe I'm wrong, maybe I haven't watched recently, but historically they make fun of themselves, they make fun of each other, they make fun of the left, they make fun of the right, they make fun of the center. Like, they don't have a problem making fun of everyone. And in doing so, it adds a uniqueness to it that, like, should allow us to transcend the petty tribalism that our country kind of goes through different throes of. Because we should be able to laugh at the ridiculousness of ourselves. But a lot of people just get more offended. So, growing up on South Park has definitely been a huge component of how I look at things and analyze things, because I'm always looking for what is the cultural criticism, what is it that we can analyze here and understand about ourselves a little bit better.
It's hard to think of another example whose outlook is genuinely non-aligned. Like I can't really think of anybody else who does it the way that they do.
Mm-mm. You're absolutely right. And I think that it's also interesting that it's not formulaic. Like when it got formulaic, they decided to rewrite the formula. Mm-hmm. And like they've been exploring, like it's almost like they're doing these like almost like mini story arcs that can be released as almost like pseudo movies. Like they did a whole like Ozempic little storyline. They did like, Imagination Land. Like they've done different ways of kind of doing the show, which I think enables them to continue to explore creativity while still taking what works for them and using it as kind of the backbone of the show.
Yeah, very true.
I just want to say this. I was looking at our list of all of the shows, and it just saddens me that The Witcher is underneath Warrior Nun.
Oh man, I'm gonna go ahead and blame Jay. Probably, I don't think it's warranted, but it's like he had to have been the one that review bombed that one.
Art is subjective.
Yeah, but Warrior Nun's definitely not better than that.
Well, why am I getting the shit for?
I mean, I probably boosted Warrior Nun up.
No. I'm not. I think it's Warrior Nun's too high. Like I'm fine with The Witcher. Witcher ultimately, like for different reasons, becomes a turd. But Warrior Nun never gets out of turddom. So,
well, are you guys ready to get into Shogun?
I am ready to get into Shogun.
Shogun. Well, friends, Romans, countrymen, let me in your ears. Shogun begins in the year 1600 during a period of political turmoil, which I know will be very difficult to relate to, but we will try our best. For the last 140 years, Japan has been in a constant state of civil war and societal unrest. In the 1580s, a new leader emerges and unites the realm by force, gaining the title of Taiko. When the Taiko dies, he leaves a child heir. With his dying wish, the Taiko establishes a council of 5 regents to rule in his place until the heir becomes of age. As our story begins, 4 of those 5 regents are starting the process to impeach and ultimately execute one of our leads, Mr. Yoshii Toranaga, the Lord of Edo. His main political rival on the council is Ishido Kazunari. Mostly they call him Ishido. He is the Lord of Osaka. Meanwhile, a Protestant Englishman washes ashore, Mr. John Blackthorne, who may or may not be a pirate, depending on who's asking. He's here to disrupt Portuguese trade in Japan and is referred to by his title of pilot or Anjin. Toranaga uses the Anjin to distract and outwit his rivals. After proving his worth, the Anjin is bestowed with a title, a consort, and most importantly, he begins a relationship with his translator, Lady Mariko. That relationship, professional and not so professional, is complicated by Mariko's tragic backstory and her immortal cuckold husband, Buntaro. Most of the story takes place in the province of Izu, stranded between Toranaga's stronghold in Edo and Ishido in Osaka. Izu is ruled by vassal Lord Yabushige, who plays both sides with varying degrees of success. Eventually, tensions come to a head, and Toranaga uses Lady Mariko to sow division between Ishido and the other ruling families. Ishido causes Mariko's death, weakening his alliances and putting Toranaga in a position to seize power. The story ends with Toranaga planning his inevitable victory and the Anjin remaining in Japan to build a fleet for Lord Toranaga. I want to start off by... Thank you. I want to start off by praising this show for its immersiveness. There were very few points where I didn't feel just completely taken in by 1600 Japan. The sets were beautiful and elaborate. The
costumes.
Costumes. I was about to say outfits, but the costumes were absolutely exceptional. So this show was an absolute joy to just kind of escape from your day to a faraway land and a faraway time.
I have a question. Do you think they used 1600s Japanese in the show? Because I noticed, I don't know if that many, I don't really know Japanese, but I know like thank you is arigato. But every time they said thank you, it was not arigato. It was a different phrase.
I think that knowing arigato as thank you, I think it comes from something like culturally later. Like I think you're right. But I think there's also a more formal thank you that is, and maybe they're using that. Because I heard a couple of things like that, like, oh, this doesn't actually mean that. It's just what we say in these moments. And the similarity is like, oh, this is like saying thank you. So I remember that there were some interesting things about Japanese language that I guess we're not aware of the nuances of.
According to the internet, it's an older form of Japanese that
Gotta respect it. I think I texted you, I was like, I didn't like the film grain, but I understand that they had to do the film grain. I guess one, to show that it's the past, but also like to help this, it like really helps special effects and CGI if it's all film grainy and stuff. So, but yeah, like you said, it was amazing production quality. Like FX did some crazy stuff there.
So I also had an interesting experience in watching this because I had to watch some of the stuff while I was working on some data entry. And so because it is subtitled, that made it very difficult to always follow everything. But Hulu did a dub version of it, which was really interesting to watch a few. I didn't watch all the episodes that way. I watched a few of them. But it was really interesting because anytime that two Japanese speakers are speaking to each other in Japanese, they would dub it over. But whenever there was a person speaking Japanese to the Anjin through a translator, they would not dub over the Japanese, and then they would have the translator. So it was just interesting because like even the quote unquote dub version, which if you have premium Hulu or have the Hulu that has the ads, for some reason the dub, they didn't put the ads in. So I got to not have to watch the ads on Hulu. But it just was interesting because it was like this weird cadence where you would go from like them talking to each other in Japanese, but then like as the Anjin got better at Japanese towards the end, like what's his name, Yabushibu, or was it
the cousin dude, the uncle dude, basically.
Yeah, the uncle. He like is talking to the Anjin in Japanese, but it's doing the dub over, and it was just really interesting, especially like the scene where Mariko dies. Like that whole sequence was really, really interesting because they dubbed it, but they also had John Blackthorne talking in English. But I also read that they're not speaking English, they're speaking Portuguese.
Yeah.
Right? So it's also kind of an interesting mind twist that Blackthorne's actually speaking Portuguese to everyone. So he's not even speaking his own language.
Yeah, I guess they thought our brains could not handle it if there was zero English. Like if we were having to read Portuguese, listen to Portuguese and read subtitles, and Japanese and read subtitles. Okay, I gotta say, like, not that, I mean, I think he did a great job acting, but like, the main character was hired for his voice, right? Because that was a great voice.
Yeah,
it's like Henry Cavill quality Witcher voice right there. I was like, that's got to be like 90% of the casting choice. Not that he wasn't good.
Yeah, I'm not sure the problem with him was the performance.
Oh, what was the problem with him?
Well, did you like Blackthorne? Did you root for him?
I didn't root for anybody. Like this is the problem I have with a lot of shows these days is that I'm just watching it. I was very, very zen here. I just was kind of watching it and experiencing it. But like everybody was out for themselves, you know? It was definitely it was just basically capitalism on display, but without money. Like everybody was out for themselves. It was all self-interest. It was all like, I'm trying to do my thing. It's just that there was also this overlay of ritual and honor and odd values. Like to me, I really struggled with like the first episode and the dude like saying, "Oh, let me commit seppuku and end my family line and kill my son." Like that really like shook me after the first episode. And like a lot of the brutality of Japanese culture in this time period really was surprising. I guess I knew about it. I'm aware, I've read all these different things, but just kind of like how how casual it felt. And everybody's like, oh yeah, he's going to commit seppuku. Like, from a modern perspective, it's really hard to understand the, I guess, callous aspect of their society to just kind of be like, oh, it's better for him to kill himself and kill his son and end his family line than to cause dishonor or start a civil war. I mean, there's your poor guy suffering because, you know, he doesn't want to cause harm to his lord.
Mm-hmm.
It's pardon the pun, it's a double-edged sword. It's just like, because of that high honor, like, it's like that can avoid a civil war. That's kind of like powerful to think. It's like, this dude can kill himself and I guess banish his son to be killed and basically prevent a war that was about to start because of like honor type thing. I don't know. It's definitely something that's hard to wrap your head around.
It feels almost inhuman. And I know that they kind of couch it in this, oh, well, we live in a place where death is around every corner, and like at any moment there could be cataclysmic earthquake that kills everyone. And so like life and death don't really have all that much meaning or whatever. I don't know. To me, it just felt very brutal.
Family doesn't even have that much meaning.
Mm-mm. And
it's like it does, but it doesn't. Like, I was about to be like, what was the show? Was it Frasier? I was like, we just don't care about this kid's son anymore in Frasier. And this, I was like, they finally brought him back like right before the end. And I'm like, we literally have not this, like, Mariko is a mother. We see her son in the first like 1 or 2 episodes. And then like, he's just not around and never mentioned ever again after their conversation of like, do you have kids? Oh yeah, I have kids too. I was like, what? Sorry. Didn't mean to interrupt you, but I'm like, I'm tired of like shows just like dropping. Like, why even have her have a son? I mean, maybe it's in the book, but it's like, there was literally 0 point to that because she didn't love him enough not to kill herself, and he was going to disown her. But she almost loved this dude she's known for a few months enough to not kill herself, almost. Anyway, sorry.
It just feels like a demonstration on how society can get warped around values, how things build out. I don't know. Like, to me, the fact that they had a room and tools for ritual suicides, like, you know, they had a tiny basket for killing your own child. Like, it was, I don't know. It just felt stunning to think that they're just sitting there like, oh, this is what has to be done. You just need to buck up, and you've been ordered to not kill yourself. You have to suffer with knowledge that, you know, your husband and your child have been killed, like, because he said something disrespectful. I guess maybe the fact that we live in a society where, God, Lord have mercy, people say disrespectful things for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, you know, and there's no consequence 99.9% of the time. Maybe that's the thing that is the real culture shock.
Early on, the Anjin makes a comment about the Japanese being, I don't know exactly what the word he used, but he makes a comment about them having little respect for life.
Yes.
By the end of the story, do you feel like he felt the same? Do you think his mind has changed? Did your mind change?
My mind did not change. I felt like they had very little respect for life. I did not feel that. I felt like 1600s Japan felt about as brutal as like 700 Rome. And I don't consider the moral values of Rome to be all that great.
Interesting.
Like, it feels like the post-Christian era of Europe and Rome. Like, Christianity does a bunch of horrible things during the Dark Ages, but it also has a massive impact on the moral structure of Western Europe, to the point that there is a, you know, idea that the underlings have some value as living beings. Whereas I feel like there is, and again, I don't want to say it's nihilism, but there just feels like that there is, you know, like Toranaga, everyone's a pawn. No one's life matters. His son's life doesn't really matter. He's taking advantage of mourning because he gets 60 extra days to, you know, it was almost like it was a good thing that his son slipped and killed himself in a midnight raid. because it gave him an opportunity to continue on his plan on playing politics. And so everything's a pawn, everything's a piece. And that dehumanization, I don't feel ever went away. I don't think that, Mariko's desire to kill herself the whole time, and then finally it's been withheld from her to the point that it can be useful to Toranaga. And then whenever it is useful, he now unleashes it, essentially. It just was more of the game. I understand why people say it's Game of Thrones, because it's politics. It's very vicious, brutal politics. I feel like Blackthorn was more or less like the last episode where he's I guess he's dreaming about being an old man and having kids, because it's all fuzzy and stuff like that. I don't know if that's supposed to be he actually made it home or not, but the show kind of is supposed to indicate that Toranaga's not going to let him leave because he's too useful as a piece in the game. Right?
Right.
Yeah, I didn't like that part. I'm like, why are we doing he's remembering this now, as an old man on his deathbed. Ugh. That could have been dropped axed completely, and nothing would have changed.
I felt like the last episode was a major letdown. I definitely was like, oh, we're not going to get the battle. We're not going to get the Game of Thrones event. Also, I also know why they call it it's they're compared to Game of Thrones, because that one episode where everything's pitch black in Game of Thrones, we got one of those in this one too.
It's true.
Which one was that?
The assassins attacking Mariko in the 9th episode, the second to last episode. Oh. There were massive sequences that I just couldn't tell what was going on, and it just gave me the same flashback PTSD that Game of Thrones episode where you can't see anything happen.
But to go back to the value of life, I took it a little bit differently, where I felt like by the end it was just a different perspective. It wasn't necessarily that they valued life any less. It was just that there were other competing interests in these people's minds. And I felt like the climax of the whole series with Lady Mariko with the spear fighting the men at the gate, and those men are working hard to not injure her. But
not because of life, because of politics.
Sure. And you could say the same for my second point, which is if they really devalue life, I feel like they would just be chopping off heads left and right. And they could have killed the Anjin at any moment just for being a foreigner. But they didn't. They used him. They used him for politics, you're right. But there was an underlying respect for life of, you can't just kill him. You have to go through the bureaucracy first.
But is that a respect for their own ritual and system, or for the individual person? And that's where I don't think it's for the individual person at all. The dude praying for the guy, the first sequence coming off the boat, and they just behead him right there in the streets. They are chopping off heads left and right. No one betrayed the Anjin and Toranaga in the fishing village. Toranaga's fucking putting heads on pikes, and he knows that it's Mariko who did it. Mm-hmm. But he's going through with just executing random villagers because, you're right, something's more important than life, his game. They're pawns.
I thought those were the people that were from the church. They actually did it. And those were the heads that cut off, but no one would conspire. No one let them do it. No one conspired. He just made it easy for him. He put the gunpowder out and let them do it, and then he killed them and put their heads on it. Spies.
I mean, maybe, but I didn't take it that way. I took it as he was like, Mariko did this, and there is no spy. There is no person. I don't know.
I think she said, you can blow up the ship, and Toranaga was like, okay, you can blow up the ship. And then the whole spy thing is because it would be embarrassing. He couldn't let people know that he let them do it. It had to be someone had to have assisted them to sneaking past all of our stuff. Well, that's how I interpreted it. I don't know.
But they were. He's continuing to hunt the people who betrayed him in the village. I didn't take that those were in fact people who betrayed him. I thought that someone from the church snuck into the village and set it on fire, set the boat on fire.
I think they did. Is what I'm saying. I think those heads on the spikes were the people that got caught from burning the ship, and they were from the church. he's punishing the village because he's like, they couldn't have done this without help from the village. And so he's like, until we find out who helped them from the village, like whatever they were doing to punish him.
I mean, but I feel like he said he knew all along it was Marco that orchestrated this. And he was the one who sent them to do this. I don't know. To me, every choice it's about the political game. It's that thing that's never supposed to be revealed, that's in the inner heart of Toranaga, and that is winning at all cost.
Yeah, it's hard. I don't like it, but it's hard for me because I don't really have I'm not religious. Like I don't have a strong faith where it's like they're I guess they're Buddhists too or Christians, but it's like their faith is like honor is their faith, and like
is it Shinto? I thought this time period was Shinto.
It's a combination of all of it.
Just like honor is their faith. It's like they'll die for it's like basically died to get to heaven. It's like they'll die to like save the honor or whatever. I don't know. I feel like another thing that makes it hard is because like I do think, I'm sure not every Japanese person, I do feel like there's a vibe of like they will do things for the greater good. Like not that they were doing things for the greater good in this show, but I just feel like the Japanese people, they do like care more about like the whole rather than the individual, whereas like America's all like look out for number one. Yeah, it's kind of like the old people that went into like do the Fukushima stuff because they were old. They're like, we'll do it because we're old, we'll suffer or whatever, so the youth don't have to do it. I'm like, dang, America, I don't think we'd be doing that.
It's like that one meme, I can do that for money.
It does seem like they're super unselfish. Like just based on how clean everything is, like there's like no trash cans. You have to hold your trash. And so me and Jay can never find trash cans, except for at
there's trash cans everywhere in America. And it's dirty as hell.
Or maybe at 7-Eleven. We need like foreign McDonald's standards to come to American McDonald's. Specifically, like multiple places I've been have a separate trash can where you pour out your ice and drink, like your ice and liquid, into the separate area. And then you throw your trash away in the other area. I was like, this is just like too smart not to be a thing everywhere. That was totally on topic.
Back to the actual topic of Shogun. The show is phenomenally filmed and acted. I actually thought the acting was very, very good. And all of the set design, everything was fantastic. I just found feudal Japan a rough spot to be in.
I think it might be useful to stop comparing these kinds of things to Game of Thrones and just maybe create a new genre of feudal intrigue.
Is it feudal or is it political? Because I feel like it's not the feudal aspect that is interesting, because I feel like in a similar fashion, what's it called? The Expanse is compared to Game of Thrones because of the political nature of it. And it's not really feudal, but there are like realms of politics and human interaction that are really fascinating, and how people make decisions. And I feel like I would put like Shogun, Game of Thrones, The Expanse all in that, whether it's historical, fantastical, or sci-fi. There's something about that political aspect, and maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you guys can tell me what I'm missing here, but I feel like even like House of Cards fits into that genre.
I think it's helped by you need swords. Like you need like fighting where there could be dismemberment or beheading. Like you need swords. You don't need like you can't have guns where people can just shoot people in the face and like modern combat.
Like a brutal violence element to it. And I think like this subgenre that I've got in my mind, it is politics, but it's specifically the politics of aligning with people who can raise an army of peasants to fight your opposing army of peasants.
That's fair. Now
I say that, and I'm struggling to think of a third example of what this might be. So right now it's just these two shows.
I was trying to like, is there another one out there? There's like pirate shows and stuff that I guess would be kind of like, I'm sure they have cutlasses, but they probably still have like flintlock pistols and rifles.
Like Black Flag.
Man, I did not care for the Anjin, but in the scene where they're being attacked by the ninjas and he finally gets to use his gun, I enjoyed that.
I didn't dislike anyone. I thought everyone played their role very well. So are you saying you didn't like his performance, or you just didn't like him as a character?
Didn't like him as a character. I never got behind his cause. And after what you said about how everybody's serving their own self-interest, that's definitely true. And so now I'm kind of after the fact trying to kind of piece together, why was I rooting for Toranaga, and why did the Anjin piss me off so much? He was just annoying. Maybe it's the pheasant. What was up with the pheasant?
I looked it up. It is actually a way of curing the pheasant for a special type of stew in old British cooking, which I think that we can just kind of hone this one into the British suck at cooking.
Stone cold and it's raw.
That was the real loss. Uejiro, man, didn't deserve it.
Yeah, but that, again, oh, well, he did something great for our village. He killed himself because he wanted to get rid of the smell.
I don't know, traditional cooking method or not, when it's infested with insects.
Yeah, there's got to be like maggots in that thing.
It has to be a certain temperature outside, and he made some statement about the temperature was changing to cooler, or like in the episode before or something. So I do think that there was some contextual reason, but I agree with you guys. I would not want to eat that. But again, there's a lot of things that the British people eat that I don't want to eat.
Yeah, I enjoyed the comic relief of the Japanese people finding the Anjin gross.
The savages and the barbarian comments, it was a very good lesson in perspectivism, right?
Yeah.
That is where I will agree with you. It's different interpretations and different views of life through different lenses and culture. But, and again, I don't think that 1600s England weren't burning people at the stakes and just as brutal in a different way. But I guess that's always like someone else killing someone. We've bred in ritual suicide as the norm is pretty rough. But, you know,
I don't think it's the norm. I think we're in like high samurai Japanese family, like nobility territory. I don't think regular citizens are seppukuing themselves for crimes, and they're probably getting beheaded by lords. But I don't think people are going this far outside of this like social circle that we're in.
That is fair. That is a very fair thing to say. As recent as World War II, the guy who was the head of the Japanese military after the emperor signed the peace treaty, he committed the hardcore version of seppuku where they don't chop off your head. Dang. The depiction, Jay, how did you handle the depiction? Like, I thought it was a rather graphic depiction throughout the show. Well, at least at the point where the best friend commits suicide. I can't remember his name right now.
Oh, car friend. Oh, car friend. She play football.
Oh, the older gentleman.
Yeah.
His wasn't even as bad as the other guys with his entrails becoming X-trails.
Yeah, I thought that was the best friend. I thought it was
someone earlier than that. Maybe it happened both times.
No, I handled it pretty well. Whenever they did it, it was never a surprise, and that kind of
that's for true.
Like, you could sort of steel yourself up to it, and it was also just, I felt like in those moments it was a well-crafted story, and it was appropriate for the story that they were telling, and it didn't bother me.
Do you think it's hard, special effects wise, to make a beheading?
They just throw green paint on your face.
Because like the seppuku, they're like showing like blood and guts, like, and they're showing them cut through their own stomachs. But like chopping people's heads off, it's always like it either zooms out or like it does a wall transition on the actual like slicing part. It's like it's in the head, just like flies off and rolls away with a splatter of blood. But it's never like you see their spine or neck meat or like neck bones like poking out of their neck or anything. Like, I wonder why. Like, is it just harder to do or it's different?
I looked up videos. And I think that maybe like the CG aspect of a beheading is probably harder. But like, there are people cutting like a hog in half with a real samurai sword. These things are sharp, and if you know how to use them, they just take your head off. Like, that is, they said that is not.
They're made for slicing.
They're made for, just severing, like right through. I just like, same thing. I was sitting there thinking, I was like, didn't they like really struggle to chop people's heads off in England? And in France, they invented the guillotine just to make that easier, but I looked it up, and apparently samurai swords, just the way they're designed, they just...
It's the curve, I think, is... They do it like a slicing, like, not like a chop, it's like a slicing, like, blow, I think, is what really does it, plus the curve.
Hashtag not sponsored. It's good.
Oh, sorry. I liked it. I don't know. There's something, like, in my morbid... I don't know. It was something kind of like... It definitely was brutal, but there was, like... I don't know. It was kind of like a... There's something like a beautiful death or something in everybody that died except for his son. If I can tell y'all something funny, like, I'm watching this episode, the dude slips and, like, totally explodes his skull, and, like, I look down at my phone, there's a notification, it's like, I guess for, like, a mental training, where it's like, keep your brain sharp. Alert on my phone, like, at the exact same time. I'm like, this is a coincidence.
Well, how about Lady Mariko's story and her role in Crimson Sky, and how her actions really highlight the difference between what is on the outside and then what's bubbling underneath. You know, did that remind you of any particular directors?
You remind me today of a small Mexican chihuahua.
Are you talking about the What a Twist guy? Signs?
Well, I'm talking about the tension between what's shown to the outside world and what's secretly underneath.
I mean, that's definitely a theme, right? Like, that's that whole, like, you've got three hearts type thing, right? Like, I feel like that's a whole aspect. I mean, that may be just a metaphor for Japanese culture, though. Anytime we talk about this, it always makes you think of Freakonomics, because they talk about that sumo wrestling cheating thing, where it was like, you know, everyone knew they cheated, but you had to act like you didn't. Mm-hmm. Like, I feel like that is kind of Japanese culture. Everyone knows why the moves on the chessboard are being made to some degree, but they're also not for those reasons. To me, Mariko's whole tragic story is because Toranaga manipulated her father into being an assassin for his benefit, to set up him to be able to ultimately do all this stuff. Like, it's a long con. But, like, at each play, everyone's tragic story somehow goes back to Toranaga. Like, the whole thing, the Taiko couldn't beat Toranaga, so there's an earthquake, like, on the day that he's supposed to go fight him, so he takes it as an omen and decides to make peace with him. Like, at every turn, the whole story kind of revolves around Toranaga's continual political games. I mean, and he's fantastic. Like, Lord have mercy. He's probably one of the most interesting and well, like, reasoned political minds of his time. Now, this is not based on a true story, right? Like, I tried to look up things and it got weird whenever I was looking up things.
Oh no, it's very close to the true story.
It is a true story, because I couldn't find Taiko. Like, every time it would go to different names when I would type in Taiko, and I didn't understand.
It's a title, right?
Yeah, but I can't figure out what the title means.
Yeah, the Taiko part I can't really explain, but have you ever heard of the Tokugawa shogunate?
Yeah,
yes.
I've heard that name.
Well, that's Toranaga. Like, a lot of these names were changed very subtly. I think I kind of spoiled this show for myself a little bit by trying to look into the true story, because it tracks reality so well.
Is John Blackthorne like a thing?
He is based on a real person. His name was William Adams. Blackthorne's story is obviously sensationalized, but the outline of the story is mostly true. Englishman comes to Japan aboard a Dutch ship and winds up as an advisor to the Shogun.
I did enjoy knowing that Edo was Tokyo. That did make it more enjoyable.
Oh yeah.
I think it was it's like a planned city. I don't know if it's from Toragama, or I don't even know his name anymore. I don't know if he planned it or if the emperor planned it or what.
Well, I guess at what point do they transition from a shogunate to an empire?
It was the 1860s.
1860s? Okay.
Yeah.
Is it one of Toranaga's real life descendants that becomes emperor, or is his shogun ultimately overthrown? I don't know Japanese history.
See, this is a part that I think a lot of Westerners kind of struggle to wrap our minds around, which is that there's there's the shoguns who are the military leadership, and then there's the imperial family who are separate and wield, during the shogunate, wield only ceremonial power. So I'm sure there are many others who understand this far better than I do, but I think what happened was that the imperial family was able to basically do a Toranaga, where they were able to slowly accumulate enough power and convince enough people to follow them instead of the shogun, that the shogun was eventually overthrown.
Is that okay? The Meiji Restoration?
Right.
Okay, that's interesting.
So I struggle to wrap my mind around pledging fealty to this warlord while also at the same time holding the emperor and the imperial family to be important too. That's some cognitive dissonance that I have trouble getting through.
Yeah, but again,
I don't know.
This is also not our culture, so it's hard for us to...
Me need presidents. Me need to know who leader is.
I mean, I still get confused by the whole like prime minister and what is it? What is it that Putin jumped back and forth before he just like moved the power to it? It's like he was president and prime minister, right?
Right. Because there was a term limit on president, so he just became prime minister for a while until they could change the term limits, and it came back.
Yeah.
Totally normal stuff. I think current events also colored a little bit of my viewing of this show, where especially at the last couple of episodes, we see several examples of people dying for their lords, being willing at a moment's notice to put their life on the line just at the word of their lord, only because their lord said it. And it made me think of the Secret Service agents, where what if you can't stand your lord? What if you think he's the biggest dickhead in the world who is actively trying to destroy everything that's good about it, but you have a duty to do, and you've got to go do it. And as, you know, some weenie guy who works a desk job and always has, I could never, ever do that.
That's a fair analysis, but I also think that I don't know how much this changes it, but like, are they sacrificing themselves for the position that the Lord has or for that person themselves? Because, like, I feel like the Secret Service, they're not sacrificing it necessarily for the actual individual, but rather for the position that the individual holds.
Right.
And I don't know if maybe that's the kind of distinction you're making, is that like, oh, well, that guy was a dick, so why would you sacrifice yourself for him? Well, the Secret Service, if they don't, right, then you don't trust them. Like, it's not about the individual, it's about protecting the office, I guess.
Right. So I guess the question is, like, what ideas are you willing to die for? And if I was a peasant in feudal Japan, I don't know, I'd have my head cut off for disloyalty pretty quick.
I feel like in my head, it's like, there's probably some, like, something to gain. Like, not for you, obviously, because you're going to be dead, but, like, for your family name, and maybe your family will gain something. Like, maybe it's a way to move up in, like, position. You know, like, Anjin kept getting rewarded for, like, saving the dude's life or whatever. And I'm sure, like, if you're, like, a vassal who dies in service, like, in battle to your lord, like, your family name goes up in, like, standing, and maybe you get, like, rewarded or somehow for that. And, like, I mean, that's a way to boost your, I don't know, something like that. I just can't understand it because, yeah, I'm like, I ain't doing it. Nope. Sorry, you're on your own, bruh. But I don't believe in anything strong enough to do anything like that.
Humans have definitely had many causes over the years.
I have to be a close family member for me to bite the bullet.
I think that you are underestimating the power of a charismatic leader. And
it would only be fear.
No, there is we live in a weird place where we have a lot of amenities. Like, we have a lot. The modern world is phenomenal. Air conditioning in and of itself, complete game changer for humanity. Like, that, number one. It's not, but I just want to say, living in basically hell, you can actually have a nice life with an air conditioning unit. And I can't imagine that when you're laying there and you're just miserable because it's 100 degrees and it's sweaty and you're I don't know, there's flies everywhere and your wife's pissed at you and it smells like ass. Like somebody probably is like, I'm just gonna go kill somebody. Like I feel like that's part of the problem is like we now live in a much more placated society. So there's less reason to get like people get upset and they just like write a Yelp review. Thankfully.
I'm sure women are glad we don't live in a time period where it's just like, man, it's hard to fathom. And it wasn't even that long ago that basically like husbands own their wives, basically.
It gets back to the evolution of society of might equals right to rule of law. I feel like a lot of what this, like there is law, right? But it really is all about who has the power. And if you are able to gain the power, you are right. And that's what Toranaga is like. He's getting impeached by the system. And he knows that if he can position himself and be the mightier warrior, effectively outmaneuver his opponents, then he wins. So, and this is the same with like, the samurai and just killing people that they feel like it because they have the might to, and who's going to stop them. They're doing something at the order of their liege lord. I feel like this is in a might equals right society, women are owned as property, right? Like there's this moment where like, well, Buntoro or whatever is beating his wife. Well, a man can do with his wife what he pleases. It's almost like they repeat that and they're like, but maybe he should not be so rough with her. Like you have to acknowledge that it's his property, but maybe you should recommend that he doesn't break his own shit.
Yeah, Clarence Thomas, big fan of Toranaga. Big fan.
Is it his favorite book, Shogun?
I mean, just like you said, whoever has the power makes the rules.
Oh yeah, that is, and you said it's right, and that's definitely the vibe I'm getting.
Might equals right. Well, the rule of law, the whole idea behind it is that it's not the might of the individual, but the might of society, right? Now, in a democracy, people choose the person that they like the best, not the necessarily best person.
Democracy? Never heard of it.
Democracy.
We're a republic. Okay, who was your favorite character? Because I'm going to throw mine out. Fuji-sama was my number one. Love that gal.
The future nun.
She's just so sweet.
I will work for 6 months, and then I will become a nun.
Hey, she found hope because she was just going to kill herself.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I was just saying, I didn't dislike the Anjin as much as Jay did, but I also he wasn't my Bobby. Yabushige, is that the right pronunciation?
Yeah.
That sounds right.
He was the most honest in his dishonesty. Like, I feel like we just got the view of him, really. Because, like, he was like, oh, I gotta do this now. I gotta do that now. I gotta play it this way to see if I can kind of get out of this alive. And I don't know, like, to me, he felt the most authentic, like a real person.
He was very likable.
Yeah.
Even when he was doing unlikable things.
Yeah. Like, and he had remorse. What did I do? What have I done? To me, he felt the most authentic as a person. I felt like a lot of the other people, the ritual just kind of made them feel distant. Not relatable. But also his weird love of poetry. I thought that was interesting.
Chiba? Is that? She felt not out of place, but it's just like, I feel like she was a weird addition. I'm sure it's bound by the book and like history kind of, but I was just like, why does she have to be playing behind the scenes and like become the new like head of like that we're supposed to be? She's the bad guy. And then I kind of lost respect because she changed her mind. I was like, if you're going to do this and like literally kill almost everybody, you can't back out. You got to go all the way to the end of it. I mean, if you're going to be that cruel and do all that, like.
But isn't she using what's his name? Is it Shiba's? What is his name?
Ishido?
The guy, Osaka. Ishido. She's using Ishido and he's using her. Right? Like everybody's using each other. Whenever it became clear based off of his choices and how he did what she wanted him to do, that he was losing power, she immediately switched over to Toranaga. To me, I agree. I don't care too much for her.
It's just weird because I feel like her motivation was to protect her son, but I feel like honor-bound duty, like Toranaga was the choice to protect her son. Like, and I don't know why she tried to I don't know why she even like tried to get rid of him in the first place. Basically, like she hated him, I guess, for her father's death or whatever. But like if everything was for her son's survival, like he seems to be by far the best choice from what we were shown in the show.
Also, didn't she reveal that she basically like didn't give birth to the Taiko's son? Like she said that 1,000 women laid with the Taiko and couldn't give birth. That kind of indicates that he's impotent. And then she says, "I took fate into my own hands."
That's the implication I got. That she never said it out loud, but that's what I was.
That's how I took that.
Yeah,
I
assumed that she got pregnant by another dude and didn't get caught. That was my favorite line.
That was well done. Yeah, that sequence, like I was like, oh wow, that's interesting. But like I thought that was going to become a plot point, and it was like, no, that was just said to Ishido for some reason.
I just love that line. It's like I made fate look at me so I could scratch its eyes out. And I was like, damn, whoever wrote that, give him a pay bump.
Yeah, that was a good line.
That was maybe the best line of the show. Who was your favorite, Jay?
Aaron took a lot of the words out of my mouth for Yabushige. I really, really enjoyed him and felt like he was the most like realistic to maybe what I would have been in this situation. But I also really enjoyed Toranaga's brother, who gets appointed to the Council of Regents. And
I liked him too.
The way that he shows up to Toranaga's place, and he's like, "Hey, before you ask me that favor, how about you ply me with drinks first? Let's make sure we do this right." I appreciated that. I don't think anybody even approached Adana. I think everybody was pretty great.
Yeah, there was no one that I was just like, ugh, this person. Did the Catholic regents turn on Ishido because of Mariko's death? Is that how y'all took that?
I don't think so.
Why did they turn on him? Because like he loses support from them at the end whenever Ochiba changes her support, but they were not happy with the hostage situation in Osaka, and they were not happy with like they were like, she needs to get a Christian burial, let me be her second, like, and he denied all those things. So like I was wondering if disrespecting their request from their religious perspective also led to Ishido losing support of the other regents.
I think the regents. I guess I was in my. Sorry, I misunderstood. I thought you were talking about the Portuguese priests and stuff.
No.
But I think that is a part of it. I think they were, like, he didn't have much of their support the whole time, except until he took hostages. Like, first Toranaga was playing up against the guy keeping the Anjin alive when they wanted him dead. And then, basically, like, their faith had them at odds with the other 2 or 3 regents for most of the time. They were just, like, too scared to do anything about it. About Ishido.
No, I think that's definitely what happened. I think that's kind of what I meant about the tension between what's on the outside and what's on the inside, where there's tension between what I say to your face and we both know is not true, but we both have to pretend that it's true. And that was the case with Ishido and the hostages, where he was powerful as long as he could both keep the families hostage while not out loud calling it a hostage situation. But Lady Mariko's actions forced that distinction. And once she proved to those families how craven he was and what lengths he would go to achieve his aims, that's what turned them. I'm not sure what degree the religious aspect contributed, but I think you're definitely right that the denial of the Christian burial, that was probably a factor in their minds.
Well, and he also earlier says when someone recommends a Christian regent to replace Toranaga, he says, well, then the position would stink of Christians. So I also felt like he kind of had they knew he had a disdain for their faith as well. Mm-hmm. And I feel like they also didn't really care for him. They just had to work with him.
They did do it. And then I guess what ultimately they lost the support of the Taiko. And then I guess I'm assuming that the flash forward is what does actually happen without knowing the actual history and or story from the book.
I mean, I assume that's how the story ended, is him just foreshadowing what was supposed to happen.
Yeah.
Well, the ending struck me a little strangely, you might say, where to me it felt like season 1 ends halfway through the story, almost like this is part 1 of 2 or even of a trilogy.
Yep.
And maybe that's because I had already seen before we even started this show that this show has already been renewed for at least another season.
Wait, what? I thought it was a miniseries.
I thought it was a miniseries too, but it's been renewed
I
for
don't like to
season.
hear that. No. Is it a different story completely? Because I feel like I'm done with this one.
Yeah, in May 2024, a second and third season were officially announced to be in development, with the writer's room assembling in mid-2024. So, the curious mind that I am, I went to read a plot summary of the source material novel, expecting to have this story end halfway through. Nope. Season 1 was basically the whole book. So I don't really know where you go from here.
Ooh,
I hope it's a different... Maybe they go anthology, that's a different story.
They could go Fargo and go back and tell like the Shogun from the previous era.
It's interesting you say that, because the novel is part of a broader saga of novels, but it's much closer to Fargo than Harry Potter, where let me look this up so I've got this correct. It's called the Asian Saga, and Shogun in terms of the timeline is the first one, but the next book, Taipan, doesn't happen until 1841, and it's set in Hong Kong with a completely different set of people. So,
are you sure it's not the third book in a 6-volume series?
So Shogun was the third volume published, but in terms of the timeline of the story, it's the first one to occur. The last one was set in Iran in 1979. So we have a huge span of time here, but I don't see how you make that also Shogun. Like, I think your idea of like telling a story of a different time in Japan, I think I'd watch that.
Yeah, I'd watch it. Completely different characters.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Is what I would watch. I don't really care.
Looking at it, Shogun, Taipan, Gaijin, King Rat, Noble House, Whirlwind. And set in Iran. That's Asia?
Believe it or not, Iran is in Asia.
Big country.
Russia? Also Asia.
Also, I sent you pictures in the chat of the 1980s John Blackthorne.
Hey-o.
Is that Mariko? Because, like, she looks like a modern lady.
Oh, you know who was my secondary Bobby? Was Rodriguez. The
yeah, that's good.
Portuguese
that's a good
navigator. Partially because he was played by Nestor Carbonell, who was awesome on Lost. He was great in the Dark Knight movies.
I immediately recognized him. Like, is this the same guy? Was he Spanish the whole time? I don't know.
Yeah. But do you know who played that character in the 70s Shogun show?
I do not.
Sean Connery.
Jonathan Rhys Davies, the guy who played Gimli in The Lord of the Rings.
Oh.
That's interesting.
The best Spaniard depiction was Sean Connery in Highlander. That was a joke, by the way, Aaron, if you didn't know.
I didn't know, but
he's a Spaniard, but his voice is the same, Sean Connery.
All I can say is that I started watching Highlander one time, and when we get to the sequence where the guy's doing backflip cartwheels across the parking garage for a good 30 seconds, I was like, what the hell am I watching?
I don't remember. There's so many. I don't know which ones I've seen.
There can only be one.
Hey-o. The one I don't know. The one with Sean Connery, it's like, I think it starts off in, I don't think it's the distant future. There's one that starts off like in the way, way future, like with like flying skateboard type things. The one I'm thinking of is like, it's like pretty modern day, and then it has flashbacks to like old Scotland, the Highlands. And Sean Connery shows up in some sort of like evil Viking dude shows up. He's the main baddie.
I think it's just the 1986 Highlander. Like I said, I didn't finish it.
I think they're doing a Highlander remake.
Allegedly,
yes. Well, do we want to give a rating to the Shogun?
Absolutely. Before you give your rating, any object catch your eye that represents this show? Maybe a A rotting bird.
Samurai sword?
What is natto? Is that like fermented beans?
The soybean thing?
Is that what it was?
Yeah, it's fermented soybeans.
Okay. I've
seen enough real shorts that have people like trying it, and it's like it's got a funky taste. Is what I can tell. They kind of make a reference to that hey, this is an acquired taste.
Like maybe not for you.
Well, Tony, how many natto beans?
I'm trying to like filter out my bias a little bit. I'm gonna go 7.5. I'm a sucker. I'm a sucker for Japanese stuff, so I'm trying to like not blast it up way too high. But I liked it. I liked the story. Loved the setting, the production value, I liked all the characters. Like there are some plot points that I think could have either been axed or like I didn't feel like got endings or didn't make sense, but quite enjoyed it overall. 7.5 bowls of natto.
Is the half bowl, is that cut in half with a samurai sword?
Yeah, you ever played Fruit Ninja?
There you go. But this time it's bean.
Ew.
Well, 7.5 natto beans from Tony. I think I'm going to land on 6 here. And I enjoyed quite a lot of this show. I think it kind of skated by on the quality of its production. I don't know. It's hard to explain where it was good, very quality, enjoyed it, but would I ever recommend it to somebody else? I'm not even really sure that I would. So that's going to be 6 natto beans here. How about you, Aaron?
I lean a little bit towards J. Like, it is well done. It is, in my opinion, quality sets, costume design. But I also feel like when I got to the end, I was like, this feels like not a finale. Like we got finale information, but a show of this caliber, I wanted an epic Japanese battle. I wanted, that fight sequence. And so I felt a little bit underwhelmed there. I did enjoy the performance of everybody, but I also didn't root for anybody. Like, to me, it was just watching the political game unfold. And at that point, like, I didn't dislike Toranaga. I just was aware that everything he did was a pawn piece move. It was a chess game. The Anjin just wasn't playing chess on the same level as Toranaga. Nobody was. But I think that I would recommend this show to the right person. Like if there's someone who I know what they like and this is something that would be up their alley, I would definitely recommend it to them. With kind of like make sure you're aware of these couple of things. Culture shock. I think 6.5 is an appropriate score for it.
All right, if you guys will vamp for me, I'll get you some numbers.
I am watching Ghost in the Shell, Tony, because I just never watched it for some reason, and I feel like an old man because it's taking me 3 attempts to finish it.
I've never watched it either. And also, it's like that and Neon Evangelion.
Evangelion, yeah.
The OG best of the best, but I haven't devoted the time to them.
I hadn't either, but it's because we're watching Dragon Ball. I've been on this kind of kick of watching some of the old school anime that was legendary when I was a teenager. Like, Neon Genesis Evangelion is definitely on my to-do list, but I've also heard pretty mixed feelings about it.
How did Mariko-sama not get blown to bits when the door exploded?
They're not very good at making bombs.
You know what I appreciated and really like took me back was when just like the people got hit by the cannon fodder and they just like that's probably what happens. But I was not expecting to see it. Yeah, just like the horses explode, like horses in their bodies just exploding, like limbs flying. I was like, that's probably what it's like. But I was not expecting it to be like that visceral. It's kind of like I haven't watched all the Rambo movies, but like I feel like one of the newer Rambo movies, he like pulls out this 50 cal like heavy machine gun and just like obliterate like body parts are just, like bodies are exploding. I'm like, it's probably not like what we see in movies where it's just like people get hit with the bullets and blood. That's probably what happens. Probably people's bodies are getting decimated by these weapons.
It depends on the gun. Like I definitely think a 50 caliber, yeah, it's gonna pop like a water balloon. I think that if you're shooting like a 22, it's not.
Well, yeah, 22. Can't even really kill a person with a 22.
No, speaking of Mariko's death, I felt like that was a that was 100% a Twin Peaks reference to the death of Miss Audrey Horne. Similarly, she's like in the doorway when the bomb goes off, and then she's dead, but her body's just fine. Like, come on.
Yeah, she's got like a bump on the head.
Brought to you by Twin Peaks.
There it is. Man, I was working so hard earlier trying to get you to say David Lynch, talking about the tension between the outside and the inside, but you were not.
I was trying to think of who you were. Yeah, I was like, who was he
even
setting me up for? I was like, Quentin Tarantino, like the tension, like Inglourious Bastards, but
I'll just have to work hard.
I realized it was David Lynch, but I didn't want to give you the satisfaction.
The answer apparently is always David Lynch.
Yes. Well, we had a 7.5, a 6, and a 6.5. That gives us a composite score of 6.66 repeating. That puts this show, I'd say, top of the bottom third. It's tied with Haunting of Hill House and Season 1 of The Last of Us and Season 2 of Miracle Workers. It is just below Tokyo Vice and just above Letterkenny Seasons 1 and 2.
Did you say 666 repeating?
Yeah.
The Catholics aren't going to be okay with that.
Man, we really, I didn't realize we were high on Tokyo Vice.
Season 2's out, isn't it?
Is it supposed to be good? It's out, yeah.
It's not supposed to be good?
It's already been canceled. I tried to pick it up, but if you remember, that show really fizzled.
It just didn't make any sense. They did a flash forward, and then they never got to the flash forward in this show.
If they didn't get to it in the second season, then they Halo'd themselves. So, because Halo also got canceled.
Oh,
I know you liked it, but I know there was a lot of people that didn't.
I enjoyed some parts of it. The second season, they made bad choices. So we've got the Catholics will be unhappy with the score, unfortunate. But I believe that means it's time for some Wheel of Randomonium.
Speaking of 666.
Now we have an update to the Wheel of Randomonium. We've noticed since our last megasode, I think the Wheel has been listening to the show and has become a big fan of The Leftovers.
Mm-hmm.
Because the Wheel has added a 2% chance of a sudden departure.
So the sudden departure essentially is... So wait, I do need a refresher on this. Did we decide that if we land on sudden departure, that the last person who won is departed?
Right. So if the wheel decides on sudden departure, then whoever nominated the current show, their departure wheel will be triggered, which will have 5 shows that individual doesn't necessarily want to watch. And we'll have a lot of fun ripping on whatever that show will be.
Now here's my one modified question. Is the sudden departure show in addition to, so like, does that count? Like if we get sudden departure and you are the winner, do we do your offering plus the sudden departure show, or is it a replacement effect?
That's just the next show.
If the sudden departure is triggered, then what show is chosen from the departure wheel is the only show.
Is the show.
Yeah.
Got it. It wasn't an in addition to. That was my one point of clarity.
Oh boy, that would be fun. That'd be a lot.
It would. Okay, well,
I don't know if I can do 2 shows in one day.
You'd have to do it over 2 days, man.
I know. It's really gonna mess up my binge schedule.
Jay, why don't you start us off with your offering? Because I had not heard of it before you put it up.
Sure, I have offered the Netflix series Dark. It's from Germany. I don't know very much about it, apart from my lady wife has watched it and says it's great and says I would like it. I also see it come up a lot on internet forums when people ask, especially about The Leftovers. Like, I've watched The Leftovers or I've watched Twin Peaks, what should I watch next? A lot of people say Dark. So I hear there's time travel involved, which I'm always a big fan of. So looking forward to that.
Tony, what do you got?
I have a Fall of the House of Usher. If I'm gonna use the internet to describe it. It's on Netflix. It tells the story of Roderick and Madeline Usher, two siblings who have helped build the Usher dynasty, giving the family power and wealth. The series is categorized as wicked horror, and so they've built a family dynasty, and it begins to crumble when their heirs mysteriously die one by one. It's based on an Edgar Allan Poe short story, and then I think I was Googling some more, and it said that it also mixes in some other Edgar Allan Poe characters and storylines in there, I think.
I'm a big fan of Poe, and I am bringing No, Edgar.
Okay.
We're just not on first name basis.
Skadoosh.
So I'm bringing Todd versus the Book of Pure Evil. I believe I offered this last year as my spooky time offering, and so I'm going for it again because it is a personal favorite of mine, and I would love to talk about it with you guys. It's also ridiculous, and that's all I'm going to say about it.
Sounds good.
So, are we ready to spin?
Do it.
My body's ready.
Yeah, I think that I'm going to shuffle. I think it's sufficiently shuffled. We spin.
Let's spin the McConaughey wheel.
All right.
You know what? I was going to say there's only one show that it could be. Because 2 years ago, our spooky show was Mike Flanagan. 1 year ago, our spooky show was Mike Flanagan.
Ayo.
Ayo.
I think last year, I was going to say, I think I must have won last year with.
No, I thought I had Mass. I thought I had what's it called? Midnight Mass last year, or was it Hill House last year?
It was Midnight Mass last year.
Oh, it was? Okay.
And that was an Aaron
That was
pick.
me.
And the year before, Haunting of Hill House. Don't know what that is. But The Haunting of Hill House was chosen by Tony.
Aha. Well, I'm 2 out of 3.
It seems that you like the spookier element, my friend.
That's just the only ones I can win.
All right.
It's like once a year, TP wins a Wheel of Randomonium.
Well, next month, we will be back with a rerun. And then in October, in spooky season, we will be back with the fall of the House of Usher. Very excited about that.
We're going to need to get some Usher sound bites. Like, it's getting hot in here.
That's Nelly. Is it?
Oh, is it? What was Usher? I don't even know, man.
Yeah!
Just, yeah? I thought
You
that
remind
was
me of a girl.
You remind me of the Babe.
Usher's got a lot of hits. You didn't like the Super Bowl halftime show? It was a...
I don't even know what you're talking about, my friend. I don't watch the Super Bowl.
Oh.
Like, I don't know commercials from the Super Bowl. I haven't watched halftime, like, in years.
It was good.
This, like I said, soccer and football, no different in my mind.
I mean, you know, it sucks getting older, but now we're the prime time Super Bowl halftime audience now. We had a couple years ago, it was like Eminem and Snoop Dogg and like Dre, like a bunch of rappers and stuff, and then Usher. I don't know who we had before that. We're the target audience now. We got all the money and stuff like that. Millennials.
Yeah, I went to a theme park in the last couple months, and all of the music that they were playing over the loudspeakers was from like summer 2008, 2009, 2010.
Oh no!
I was like, oh no.
Yeah, I'm having a hard time with the Gen Alpha, Gen Zers that are like Creed and Nickelback. They're great bands, and I'm like, man, you guys weren't around when it was everywhere. Whenever everybody sounded like that. But I don't know. I was never a fan of any of them. You used to get made fun of for liking Creed, man. That's the good old days. I remember there was one guy who's like, my favorite band's Creed, and everybody laughed at him, and it was just like a great joke that we were all in on.
Man, that all turned around quick. Like in the last year.
Did. But what's funny is that like Creed like did a show and like all these people were bitching about how shitty he was and like he was late, and I was like, this is the thing. Like he was a turd.
Yeah. Just waiting for Nickelback to get rehabilitated.
Nickelback made their own documentary about how they felt bad that they were made fun of for, you know, being a pop rock band. And I was like, dude, it's the internet. Get some thick skin.
Yeah, it's like when they ask OnlyFans models, what are your children going to think of what you're doing? And they say they're going to cry in their Ferrari. Like, Nickelback is crying in their Ferraris right now. They don't give a shit.
There's just some weird pop culture things happening right now. And I guess it's kind of like whenever we were younger and like, you know, you're like, oh yeah, I like classic rock, like Ozzy Osbourne, and the old dudes were like, that ain't classic rock, that's metal.
Yeah, when did Motley Crue become classic rock?
Yeah, I've
heard that somewhere.
Bowling for Soup song, right?
Yeah.
I've heard it both ways.
Don't do the math on if they remade that song today, what year they'd be. God damn it! Those martinis.
I saw the 1985 meme, right? Like it would be like what?
Yeah, that song came out in 2004, so they'd be singing about 2005.
Well, that's the year I graduated from high school. So,
are you a little bit older than us?
Yeah, I'm a little older than you guys. I graduated in 05.
I didn't even know. You have such a youthful spirit about you that.
You're mistaking high energy and verbosity for youthful nature. Like,
I'm sorry you couldn't be like us with that 007 license to graduate.
That's good.
Well, it's been a tremendous pleasure to serve with the two of you this evening discussing Shogun. Thank you very much for joining me.
You're welcome.
And
thank you.
We will be... Oh, I want to thank our...
Shall we go to pillow time?
I want to thank our executive producer, Dick Wolf, and we will see you next time to be talking about the fall of the House of Usher. Until then, we will be... Oh, God damn it. What's my new catchphrase? See, I was...
Is it, damn it, what's my new catchphrase?
Until next time, we will let the mystery be.
Son of a bitch, I'm in.
He was 6'9".